right.
Here we go. Welcome. I have Beth Bridges here for a special bonus session to give you a sneak peek as to what you are in for this Saturday at our National Speakers Association Northwest chapter meeting this upcoming Saturday. I hope you plan to join us. So welcome, Beth. How are you?
Hi. I'm great. Thanks, Mel.
So I got a few questions for you. First of all, and I have to say, I don't recall ever hearing this answer from you. How many networking events have you been to?
In 11 years, over 2,500 networking events.
Seriously? You count them?
Seriously. I had to average it out after a while because, you lose track. But for many, many years, I averaged about 25 networking events per month.
Wow.
And anybody who's in HR knows that there are only 22.6 working days each month. And so literally sometimes it would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow. So why so many?
Yeah. So why so many? I started asking myself that after a while. But so I joined an organization, the Chamber of Commerce. So I was brought on board to be the marketing person for the Clovis Chamber of Commerce. And in interviewing for the position, at the very end of the interview, they ask you, do you have any questions for us? And I didn't ask, what kind of marketing budget do you have? Because they would have had to have said, we just blew the whole budget on you. So they just didn't have a lot of resources. It's a small nonprofit. They didn't have a great big advertising budget. They didn't have a great big marketing budget. And so really what I did have was the opportunity and the willingness to just go out and really, to a certain extent, take the organization to any forum or any available opportunity I had to go out and tell the story and share it with people. And as well, I had the opportunity to build up our own networking offerings, because that's what people told me when they joined the chamber. What are you looking for from the chamber? We want networking opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So it grew a little bit from there, and then it grew a lot from there, and 25 to 30 networking events a month if you count one-on-ones. I don't count in that 2,500 all the coffee meetings and one-on-one lunch meetings and let's just meet right after work or come on by my office, and there were hundreds of those as well.
So do you remember how we met?
I sure do. I definitely remember how we met. And the funny thing is, it was almost exactly 5 years ago, because I put it on. I know. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Because Facebook popped it up just a few days ago on my memories.
Okay.
And it was you and me, and I think the gentleman's name was Alan Miller.
Yes, he was one of them that was there too, and also Matt Tomshow was there.
Matt Tomshow, who I am still have stayed connected with him. I have presented on an event that he did, a couple of years ago, and he and I still connect every once in a while. And also, do you remember meeting Dallas Teague Snyder?
No, I don't.
Coach. She may have been at a different event. In fact, she was not. Let's back up for the audience. Let's back up here just a little bit. We went to an event, a boot camp, a 4-day boot camp, put on by James Melanchak, one of America's Secret Millionaires, and it was in Los Angeles. So you must have flown out from?
I think I was in Seattle at that time.
Seattle, okay. And I drove down. I'm trying to remember now if that was the one where a friend of mine went, and somebody that was going with her canceled at the last minute. She calls on a Thursday afternoon, says, I have this ticket, I have this opportunity, if you can jump on it right away. I literally got on the train, right, which from Fresno, you end up on the bus anywhere, but I took the train to get down to LA, got into LA at about 2 in the morning, because of the opportunity. It was a fantastic opportunity. I knew that I would meet just amazing people. It is a networking opportunity like nobody's business. And the interesting thing about, and I'll talk about this a little bit more on Saturday, how do you make the most of great big events like that? Big old boot camps and conferences and regional conferences. And it takes extra work to maintain some of the connections that you'll make at these events.
And that's one thing that has always impressed me about you is, like you said, it takes work. Normally you go to a big event, you meet all these people, you're caught up in the energy of it, and you get home and then nothing happens. But with you, it's always been very personable, or you've always been very personable from day one. In person, it was never about getting caught up in the energy. It was, how can I get to know you right now? And then I
have a strategy for these events.
And then you did the same thing with your follow-up, not just right away, but every time we've been in touch since. It's always about, how can I connect with you and how can I stay in touch with you? And I know you hear people say, do this, do this, do this, and you take what is clearly a system, but it never feels like a system. It always feels like you're only paying attention to me.
Maybe I am.
Maybe.
No, well, yeah, that was the one where we did meet Matt Tom's show. And also, thank you, by the way, for your kind words. But that is a big part of what I'm going to talk about, is a system that works that way. And you've put it very well. You know, having a system really makes a huge difference. Her name just went out of my head, Jill Lublin.
Yes, she's actually coming and presenting in, I believe it's May.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, she'll be here in May.
Yeah, and I think we met her that same event.
I don't recall. Okay. I know her through the National Speakers Association, okay, but I don't recall.
So I met her through later versions, because I'd probably gone to 4 or 5 of James's events over several years, and I met her at one of those, and connected with her. My friend Dallas Teague Snyder, who I've stayed very good friends with over these years, and just really a handful of people. I don't know if I should give the secret away right now.
I think you should, because you're going to get to hear, we're going to get to ask questions more on Saturday.
There you go.
Dive deep then.
Part of the secret, of course, is that when you connect with people at these events and you reach out to them, you're going to reach out to 20 people. And you're going to hear back from 2.
I was just going to say 2 if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And so if you're continually reaching out to, these, let's say it was 20 people, if you're continually reaching out to these 20 people and you're not hearing anything back, there's one of 2 things happening. One, you're selling them. You're trying to sell them something and they're not buying, they're not ready to buy. Or they don't have a good networking system in place, so they're not sure how to respond, or they're not able to keep track of those sort of things, or they get your message and they have good intentions, but it's those who reach back out that now you can start building a connection over a long term. And so you and I connected, and you reached back and I reached out, and then we connected mostly on Facebook. And just exchanging messages and liking things that you posted, and watching the ongoing development of your business and your brand. That's just been really exciting to see that happen. And then when you went purple, that was like the best. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I loved it.
That's been well received this time around.
Yeah, okay.
It's very Seattle.
Look at this. We are A-line hairstyle system. I wish I'd get some heavy duty sculpting cream and just make these suckers pointy right here.
Then you'd have little weapons.
That's right. You're bothering me.
So how do you leverage these this system for networking to turn it into business, to get speaking gigs like what you've done with coming here to Seattle?
It's really important that if networking is your sole source of leads, you had better be really, really good at it and doing a whole lot of it. So really that answer is kind of, don't count on networking to build your whole business. I mean, it takes a great deal of effort, and anybody in business is going to tell you to not put all of your marketing in, one basket.
Right.
Don't rely on any one channel. So networking really, to a great extent for a professional speaker, is a lot about personal branding. Personal branding is marketing. Yes. What is your, look? Do you have a signature look? Do you have a particular way that you present yourself? But networking is really one of those major channels that you get to present your personal brand. So that supports sales, but it's really important to not think of networking as selling. That's where a lot of people, especially people who are in sales positions, I feel like they get misled. Go out there and get some leads. Go out there and prospect. And then they have a negative experience, because that is not, networking will lead to sales, but it's not when you do your selling. And it's tempting. A lot of people do it, and I found myself, kind of, in the sales mode, and wait a minute, this is not the environment.
Well, I think those leads groups don't help that.
Yeah, it's leads groups are good. They're very good. I mean, it's like a special form of masterminding, but relying on people whose only source of leads is networking, you need to be really good at it and doing a lot of it.
So how are speakers' networking needs different from somebody else in a different business?
Yeah, I think it is different. And one of the things I think is that I think there's a misperception that every single speaker out there, because they get on stage, is an extrovert.
No, that's not true.
That's not true. In fact, I'm almost going to go out on a limb and say that there's probably almost a little more introverts in the speaking business definitely more than you would think.
I would definitely agree to that, because there's the whole stage persona, if you will, and you go into stage mode when you go to present, and it's different when you're networking.
Yeah. And so one of the tricks really can be to go into stage mode when you are networking as well, and think of it as kind of performing a little bit. It takes a lot of energy. You get off stage and you're exhausted. Mm-hmm. Like all I did was stand there and talk for an hour or two. And the same thing with networking events. I think what happens to a lot of introverted people is that they go to a networking event and at the end they get home and they're just wrung out, and they think, I feel so bad and tired, I must have failed. I must be a failure because I'm so tired. And the thing to remember is, one of my pet peeves. People, well, it makes me mad. Because my brother and I, it's hilarious. So I'm extroverted over here. My brother's introverted over here. And I mean, we're full-on siblings. I mean, same mom and dad and everything. And even my parents were like, my dad looks at my mom, how did these two totally different children come out of your body? And I'm like, oh. But I have mellowed out a little bit as I gotten older. My brother's kind of,
he's come out of his shell a bit.
He'll string together a few words every once in a while. So I'll get mad once.
What's that?
I saw him get mad once.
Ooh.
Not just at the 49ers, so.
That's impressive.
But when people call introverts shy, that's not true. That is not what introversion is all about. It's where you get your energy from. So introverts are energized by their own thoughts, and so their energy comes from within themselves. And extroverts get their energy from interacting with other people. So when you go to these networking events and you have all these extroverts, they're like nom 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 nom. They're eating up your energy, which is fine when it's two extroverts, right? Because they're like nom 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 nom, you know, and they're just feeding off each other, and it just gets you know. But these poor introverts don't have a lot of defenses anyway, and all their energy is just getting sucked up, and then they get home and they're exhausted. So. You know, that's something to remember, that is not failure. That is not failure. And also something to remember is that a networking event, so networking doesn't have to take place at an event, but actually by my definition, a networking event is any time two or more people get together for the purpose of networking. How many people? Two or more. And one of them is you.
Oh, that's a good key there.
So, you know, if you can deal with one person at a time, you can still participate in networking, you know, but also for speakers. So I know a lot of speakers speak locally, but most speakers who, you know, are making a living doing this is your profession. You're a professional speaker. And by the time you join NSA, you know, you're a professional speaker and you're either there or you're getting there. You need to travel. And that means, and I'm going to talk about this fairly extensively on Saturday. You know, what do you do when your market is not just local? And how, so do you even bother with local networking? You bother with the Chamber of Commerce? I'm kind of a big fan of Chambers of Commerce. You know?
I wonder why.
I wonder why. One of my other presentations that I haven't had the chance to present to anybody, but it's out there. If you know any Chambers of Commerce, is teaching their ambassadors how to rule their Chamber of Commerce. Been on the inside, been on the outside. I can tell you how to rule your Chamber of Commerce. You know, but is that even a worthwhile use of somebody's time if that's not their audience?
And I'm assuming you're going to be sharing some tips with that on Saturday?
I'm going to talk about that, you know, fairly in depth, because that's a big one.
Good.
Right.
So how long has it been since you released your book?
It's been about 2.5 years.
I thought so.
Yeah.
And Bob Burke wrote the foreword. Tell me more about that.
Bob Burke. Bob Burke, for those who don't know who Bob Burke is, they'll go, sounds really familiar. One of his first book was one of the first networking books I ever read, and made a huge impression on me. Just, it was so thoughtful and strategic and, you know, very authentic, but it was clearly a system. The book is called Endless Referrals. Does that sound familiar? Right? A lot of people are like, I don't know Bob Burke. And I go, Endless Referrals. Oh, yeah.
I know that one.
Yes. And more recently, he's written a book called The Go-Giver.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
And that has made it to the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh, awesome. So how did you get him to write your foreword?
Yeah, you'll have to read the foreword, but look up Bob Burke as well, because he was an inspiration to me from the time I read the book. Just like I said, how just systematic and really thoughtful and laid out this is, and really approaching networking. It was really the first thing I had read that really approached networking as a system.
Okay.
There was a lot, though. I mean, there was a lot of different things in the book, you know, but even if you just had applied a handful of them, you would be more systematic about your networking than almost anybody you'd ever met. So how did this come about? I had started blogging. I had a lot of thoughts about these things, and a lot of people were blogging, and so I started blogging, and I had been blogging fairly consistently. I forget for how long now, and had gotten on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was on Twitter before I was even on Facebook. So I've been on Twitter.
You went backwards.
Yeah, I know, right? Most people get on Facebook and then they get on Twitter, and it's been so long, I'm trying to even remember. It was a conference call, and somebody had talked about Twitter and got on there. 2009.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes, so I've been on since mid-2009. I've been on Twitter, and you look up the little things, and they say, you've been on Twitter longer than 99.8% of everyone. At first, then it was pretty sparsely populated, and I'm like, I'm not sure I get this. This doesn't sound like that much fun. I mean, there's not that much going on, of course, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had found and connected with Bob Burke on Twitter, and mostly, at that point, it was just, it wasn't even liking at that time. You would, bookmark, favorite, yeah, you'd favorite things, or sometimes you'd retweet them. And Bob was fairly active. And one day, I had a comment on one of my blog posts from Bob Burke. I thought, well, that can't be the Bob Burke. So I went on Twitter and I said, I have a blog. I have a comment on my blog from Bob Burke, surely not the Bob Burke. And I get a tweet back, well, yes, it is me. It is the Bob Burke. And I have to admit, I had a total fangirl moment, of course, wow, oh my goodness. And he and I just started talking, and of course, again, this goes back to that whole thing of if you reach out to somebody and you reach out and you reach out and you reach out and you never heard back, but Bob, of course, being a networking icon means that he's someone who's genuine and engages in conversations. And so he'd tweet stuff, or I'd reply, or, I'd comment on his blog, and he always, if you make a comment on his blog, he adds to it or responds to it or thanks you for it. And so that continued for quite some time. And when I started writing the book, I started thinking, what would really be amazing is to have Bob write the foreword to this. So let's see, this would have been early 2003. I find out that one of our local universities, Fresno Pacific University, every year brings in a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's been Tom Peters. Yeah, Tom Peters. I saw him at that. And you ever seen Tom Peters speak?
I don't think I've seen him live, but I've definitely seen videos of him.
Like waving and spitting. And I can tell you about the spitting because he walked by our table and he's like, ew, wow, ew. But they've had Dan Pink. I mean, they've had just huge, huge names. And Bob Burke. So I found out Bob Burke, and I thought, Bob Burke is coming to Fresno. I have to meet him. So I called the conference and I said, I'm going to buy a ticket, of course, but is there any way I can volunteer, any way I can, man the door, sweep the floor, whatever it is. I'm sure he'll come in and maybe there'll be a VIP. I would just love to meet Bob Burke. And I sent that message, and then I got home that night and I had a Facebook message from Bob Burke saying, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm going to be in Fresno, and I'm wondering if you, and there was another friend of ours who had reached out to Bob as well, mm-hmm. and had regular conversations with him, and if you and Tom would like to get together and have coffee.
Oh, that is awesome. You're trying to meet him and he comes to you.
Yes. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to ask him to write the foreword to my book.
Oh yeah.
This is the time I need to, I have to ask. This is the time to ask because, and this is how gracious he is, because there's some people who write a foreword to whatever book they have. right? And Bob doesn't write a lot of them. So I asked him, and he said yes. And I said, would you like to maybe see the book first, or an excerpt from it? Would you like to, because I did have an outline at the time, because I had the concept,
right,
pretty well fleshed out, and the book was well along the way. And he said, no. He said, I really believe that it's going to be good.
Wow.
No pressure now.
No, none at all.
So networking, and it was a process of over, it was probably 2 or 3 years, really, of being connected. And that's another part of this too, is that it's another reason, by the way, why depending on networking for your sole source of leads can be rough.
Oh, yeah.
Because it does take time to develop. It really does. If you're doing stuff where you're expecting results right now, this week, today, you're probably not networking. Now you're prospecting. Now you're probably selling.
Yeah.
And it's easy to cross that line. And it's easy to cross that line if you don't have leads coming into your pipeline. Now the pressure's on, and that pressure will make you be more salesy than you really intended.
So we are just about at 7:30, and what one final tip do you have for the Northwest community here, hoping they will attend, and what is a teaser that you will cover that we did not talk about tonight?
I really didn't talk about the main core of what I'm going to present. You and I have talked here about systems, right? And having a process. And I talked about how, Bob had a system, and how other people have a lot of tips, and how do you know you're networking, and how do you know you're networking right? Because there's not a lot of right or wrong ways to do it. The wrong way is if you feel frustrated and other people don't like to see you coming. Right? They're like, oh God, then you're doing it wrong. I'm going to share my system. It's very simple. It's very straightforward for those who are just starting out with this whole networking thing, or who've been doing it, just kind of doing it, but they couldn't really tell you exactly what they're doing. I'm going to lay out a guideline, a framework, a system. I call it the 5-part networking success plan. 5 parts. I'm going to just lay that out for people and give you my best tidbit for each one, and also talk specifically about leveraging that particular part, especially for speakers. So that's the little teaser for what we're going to be doing on Saturday.
Awesome. What about one final tip for tonight?
If you can be patient, not necessarily in waiting for results, but being patient and knowing that you build this up day by day, you build it up relationship by relationship, you have other things going on while you build your networking relationships, so that you're not pushing people. It definitely pays off. And it does one of these things where it goes like this, and you feel like nothing's happening, but you keep working, and then so be patient and stay with it.
Okay, wonderful. I am Melanie DePoli, current chapter president of NSA Northwest, and I am hoping to see you this Saturday at the Mercer Island Community Center with Beth Bridges, as she shares her top secrets on how to become a master of networking, as she has clearly already done. So looking forward to seeing you. You can register, click on the link below to register, and I'll see you then. Bye.